Hey there everyone, welcome back to another episode of Animal Crossing. Oh my goodness, today's a recorded episode because I feel awful. I have like something in my chest, like I'm going to get sick very soon. Right? I haven't been in contact with anyone, so hopefully I didn't magically get like COVID from a shopping bag from bringing in stuff from my mom coming home from work, right? Let's just hope it wasn't anything like that. Today is very cold. Oh my goodness. So, I don't know if you remember months ago, right? Today is going to be another talking about a controversy episode, right? This one is one that you most likely probably don't really give a fuck about, to be completely honest with you. Because it's really a nothing type of thing, and I think people try to turn it into something and then just failed, and then accept the terrible outcome, or accept the half-effort outcome of what ends up happening. If you don't recall me talking and pretty much debating the idea of orcs, are orcs racist? Right? That was the thing that ended up coming up way back, God, in like June, I think it was. I fucking talked about it a lot. Like, at first, I talked about it as, like, someone learning about it, right? I'm like, okay, I never viewed them as racist. People view it as, like, the savagism of, black people. And, yeah, you're like, what the fuck? Like, you mean the green, orange fucking plant monsters? Right? The bad, like, Sauron's army? What the fuck? Yeah. And then Drow just being a representation of black people because their skin is literally the color black, not a shade of brown, the literally black and purple. Right? And people pulling that and saying that's racist, and they hate the fact that they're always evil, and they're never the good guys or anything along those lines. Now, for the Drow, right? There's a what's his name? Liz something, if I'm not mistaken. The Drow guy, there's a hero, like a book that follows him, and people always want to be him way back in the day. Like, he was the archetype character. You know how people want to be like, when they're first playing D&D, they're like, oh, can I create an Aragorn? Can I create a, you know, a Gimli? Can I just, like, create, like, something from the Lord of the Rings? Can I create a Frodo? Can I create a Gandalf? Right? You just pull from, like, your favorite stuff, as time goes on. And Wizard of the Coast, with this new book that came out, that pretty much allowed you to customize your races and whatnot. More classes, it just gave a whole bunch of stuff. They promised that they were going to change, like, origins of races and whatever. They're like just gonna write out all the racism in it, or the racism people picked out. Right? It went from, why are orcs and Drow always the evil race? Why are they always the boogeyman? And then it transferred over like, oh yeah, by the way, this stuff is like super racist. Why is it super racist? I personally don't see it, because I view them as fantasy races. Other people see it differently. I find it racist they see it like that, to be completely honest with you, because it's kind of fucking, it feels wild, right? You just going like, oh yeah, a green monstrous creature. Yeah, that's a black person. You know, this thing just like, these nomadic conquerors, right, that love battle, and just take from civilization. By the way, just black people. It's fucking weird. Right? It's weird as fuck. And I've never seen anything saying that it was to a specific race. You know what? And I may be wrong, but I have yet to find anything regarding it. But Wizards of the Coast, you know, with the big promise they were going to change everything, they ended up putting it up in their book, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, a little blurb about it, right? And their blurb was just pretty much, there may be things in the lore or things regarding the races in the Faerun, right, in the 5th edition universe. If there's anything like you just don't like, right, or you view as racism or whatever it is, just homebrew it out of your game. Just ignore it. Don't like do anything like. Just ignore that it's there, right? Put binoculars. Now, this was like a super big issue that you had publishers, like the writers, publicly talk about, and that's their response to it. And people are clapping at it, which means people are just mad because of outrage, because racism bad, by the way. I don't know if you knew that, alright? Racism bad. And it's very dumb. I think it's very dumb. I think it's of people who had good intentions and then they're just accepting nothing as an answer. Now, I am all for giving new lore to the orcs and drow as to make them not bad anymore, because it's the same thing over and over. Betrayers, war chief type of things we see with, you know, WoW, right? World of Warcraft, that you can change a whole fucking ton, unless you're a troll. Unless you're a troll in World of Warcraft, then your lore is really fucking cool and weird, but you get shit on and you have your land taken 24/7. Right? Personally, what I think they should have done a statement. They're like, hey, we're gonna have like another separate book, and we're just going to give you the general lore, a rewrite of everything, right? We're gonna be revamping the Faerun, you know, or we're going to be moving on from the Faerun and moving on to something else, because there's a lot of people who just take from the book. Like, it's so weird. A lot of the stuff that people found like disgusting about it's from like these old stories from the 70s, where I'm just like, why the fuck weren't they changed to begin with? Why wasn't never just like revamped, made to make more books, right? It doesn't mean it's awful still, right? But in the long run, it's just, don't want to have black people's feelings hurt because they're being compared to literal monsters. That's one part of, like, I guess you can say the silent racism, you know, and racism as a whole is more than just saying the N-word, right? It's more than being threatened, you know, it's a institutionalized ideology, right? That stops people from progressing, that stops people from getting better jobs, from getting paid more. You know, it adds a awful stereotype, you know? So, I don't know. It's all bullshit in my mind currently. What they did for it, it was really bad. It was really fucking bad. It was so embarrassing just like reading it. Where's the fucking other one? I'm trying to dig up and find another fossil so I can make some money, and I can't find any. But yeah, that's just pretty much it. They gave like a nothing statement. They're like, homebrew it out. Like, I don't play with the main story of the game. Like, I'll pull it for the gods and stuff, but like, doesn't really matter. When I had a player, right? She doesn't play anymore. I remember she played a half orc, and she was like, oh, I want my characters to have gods and stuff. And a lot of the gods have just persecuted orcs just because they are the bad guys. Like, they're the spooky bad guys in the universe of D&D, because that's just what they were made to be, right? You need to have the bad guy. You know, you have the Geth. You know, you have the Sith. You know, you have all those things, except they're, you know, for the Geth and I guess for the Sith, they're a little bit more... Well, in the movies, the way they portrayed them, I guess they're not very seasoned, but in the books, for the Sith, most definitely, and you get, like, gray Jedi, which are really interesting, but really are just kind of, like, annoying in the long run, because they don't believe in nothing. You know, it's evolved. I don't know. It's so fucking weird. I forgot, like, what I was going for is so weird, because, like, I'm just, like, excusing shit. it's lame, right? It's lame. People getting mad at it was lame as fuck, and I think it was people piling on just because, to be completely honest with you, because racism bad, you know, and people not being mad for the correct reasons. But I don't know. I love D&D, man. Like, if they reprinted, like, Lore of the Book and stuff like that, people will buy it. It's new. Especially with how people are treating characters now. You know, Tiefling... Oh, yeah, excuse me. A player. I had a player who would look through the lore for the Greyhound gods? Greyhawk gods, excuse me. Which are the gods that I use for my D&D game. The gods most people use for D&D games. Oh, Jesus, fuck. And she's like, oh, all these gods are racist because they hate orcs or they despise another race because they did them wrong, whatever it may be. And I was like, yeah, you can just, like, ignore that. You can just ignore that, but she was just blinded by it. Because she just couldn't get over it, and she called it racism. And I was like, well, in the story, you know, a fucking gnome stole from a kobold because they're dumb and gnomes are smart, and the kobold had something that his little brain couldn't understand because he was just a little kobold rated as like an ant, right? And he took advantage of him. I was like, the gnome's a piece of shit in the story. Right? And that's why kobolds are just like, never trust a gnome. Never trust a gnome. They stole our eternal timepiece of the clockwork Morgan. Like, it's silly. It's silly. I don't know. I remember her continuously scoffing at all the gods and not wanting to have any of her NPCs use the god. And I was just like it ain't that deep. It honestly isn't that deep. You're picking something you want to get mad at currently right now. And then she ended up picking like a Ioun, right? A god that wasn't in any conflicts in any way, from what I can understand. She's just the goddess of knowledge, right? Or the god of knowledge. It could be whatever you want. Goddess, god. I usually have my gods be whatever they want. I have them, I like the idea that the gods reincarnate into people, and they take on the image of a person they've reincarnated into. So it could be any race, any sex, or anything along those lines. Because I feel like having like a, you know, like a vision of how we view like Jesus Christ as like this fucking white guy with long hair. Right? How majority people view him. Some people make him black, some people make him Chinese, make him Indian, you know, it depends on where you're from. Like, he's a different color, you know, even though he was African, if I'm not mistaken, right? Is it with the area? Is it African or Middle Eastern? I don't know. He's brown, right? He's brown. And I just like the idea that they're just like this homogeneous. Is homogeneous the right word? But they're like this shifting. Like every time, like so you would meet one, there's someone else, right? Is it because who you're perceiving someone that they reincarnated into previously to do great things, right? That's how I do it, you know. No, like, nothing like the, you know, how like Zeus and all that stuff. I guess that's a better way. You have an idea what Zeus looks like, even though he was a shape changer. It's kind of crazy. And Zeus's stories are not very cool. He doesn't treat women very well. If you really think about it, in a lot of the Greek tragedies and comedies, women don't get treated very, very well. They're almost always treated like they're fucking stupid. Which is kind of interesting, actually. That they get tricked by things. They get turned on by swans. What if we find out these stories were like based in like real, like yeah, like you know, Fatuous, she fell in love with a long-necked swan, right? And she would even go to bed with it, and people are just, oh, she fucks a swan, she goes to bed with swan. But she could just be a lady who lived by herself, and one, already stigmatized, right? Two, took care of a fucking swan and was so nice to it, and or like they became so attached that they just sleep in the same bed. Right? What? What? You didn't do that one? And people just go crazy with it. That's what I think, like, a lot of the stories of witches and whatever it may be. It's just pretty much people being, like, dismissive and, like, oh yeah, if she doesn't have a husband, then there's something wrong with her. She's crazy. She lives in the wood by herself. She's self-sufficient. Right? She doesn't need a man. She's doing witchcraft. She has a big cauldron. Why does she have a big cauldron for? You know, not to do laundry or anything. Not to cook food, you know, or anything, right? Like, what, she's just adding spices. What the fuck? Spices? What the fuck? That would be later on when spices are available, right? Usually you get greens that you would pick. Spices were pretty much taken for the rich, and it's kind of interesting how they would like spice things. They would add fucking sugar and like heavy salt and heavy pepper to everything, right? And there's just like different types of pepper, not like the pepper we know now, like this fucking weird bitter pepper. You know, they would add all these bitter things. They're like, oh, cloves of garlic, like just a clove of garlic. Wrap it on the skin, throw it in the pot, forget about it. You know, it's it's interesting. I don't know. You're so cute, little Clee. Sorry, I have a moving background. Right? I don't know if I can be able to show it. Do I have a? Let's see. Do I have a desktop button? Let's see. Window capture. VOC. Display capture. Okay, we'll do that. Oh my great googly fucking moogly. Yeah, I bet you guys didn't think you're gonna see this. Display capture 2. 2, bitch. There you go. Look, it's Clee. And then we'll fit this too. Look at a little Clee. This is from the cinematic of Clee in Genshin Impact. Also in the lower right were maps that I used at the beginning, when people were like, oh yeah, this is where you fight these monsters at, before I knew you could look in the adventure book, right? That's before anyone knew you could look in the adventure book for anything. It was during the first couple of weeks, all newbie stuff. Newbie. Let's see if we can talk to someone. I think she might be crafting. But yeah. I don't know. I'm sorry if you guys are like tired of like conversations relating to this. I think they're good as a way to like kind of like understand things. And you're like, oh, gamers really don't give a fuck about this. I do think a lot of this does matter within the long run, and we do see it in our video games, so much so that you see people just get fucking pissed off. They're like, you could be a lesbian in the game? Fucking social justice warriors. Dude, way back when, like the 2015, like pre-2015, when you had the social justice warrior bullshit way back when, that shit was fucking stupid. That was like outrage to be outraged. That was like white guilt type shit. Like all the way. You're like, fucking Bethany, your family's from Poland. What are you doing? Your family is Irish. What are you doing? You were a slave and thought lesser of for a very long time, brother. And just because, you know, your family forced themselves to be, your people forced themselves to be cops, they became quote-unquote respected after they beat the fuck out of everyone. And we just somehow, for whatever reason, because of school, we just accepted everything regarding cops. Some of them being fucking, like, weird-ass Pinkertons, right? Like, easy, brother. You don't have to feel guilt about what your ancestors did, because your ancestors were just a fucking slaves and forced to eat potatoes. Easy, brother. Easy, brother. Doesn't mean you can't have understanding and want change and do stuff related to the change and educate people. but dying on a hill, probably you don't need to. But anyway, that was about it. My name is Luna. As always, stay frosty, okay? I'm gonna go drink something warm. I think we have tea. I think it's sleepy time tea, too. I just woke up. I woke up from like a 3-minute nap. I feel like shit.